I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
We're AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we're watching Steins Gate, Season 1, Episode 20. Sorry for a little bit of a late upload. I was coughing a bunch, and that would have been annoying to sit through. So, we're back. Steins Gate. Last episode was a big Moeka episode, and it was heavy for a lot of different reasons.
It was a heavy Moeka episode.
I left that episode wondering what would have happened if Moeka stayed in the world line where she was truly a lab member and surrounded by other people who cared for her rather than just FB, who had been using her for a long time, manipulating her for a long time, and
gave her a place to be.
Yeah, and the last thing that we heard was from Moeka that the IBN 5100 is in a coin locker, and I believe that's probably where we're headed now, right?
Probably.
I've learned one thing from this show, and that is don't have any expectations because they're probably wrong. Or
So
they're probably right,
anything.
and then once you start thinking they're right, they're going to make you think that they're wrong until they tell you that you were right all along and then take away your favorite character in the show. You ready?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Finalize.
That looks like a coin locker to me.
Which one's it in? Are we just gonna wait to
For
see if
FB.
someone comes and gets it out?
What's Mr. Braun's first name?
FB might know what Moeka looks like, though. So would they come by still?
I think FB would know what
That's
Okarin
true.
would look like. But
Would FB really, like, go themselves, or would they send someone?
probably not. What number lab member was Moeka? Damn.
Yeah, passing it along. Tattoo. I hope we don't lose sight of anyone. Oh.
What a sequence. Reminds me of when we first met Moeka.
Mm-hmm. And he had a close relationship with Suzuha. So Mr. Braun's just a part of it.
$6,000 now instead of 5.
そうかおめえ1000円増えてるじゃないですか。したいことがあります。なんだよ、改め FB という人物についてご存知ですね。俺たちは全部見ていたんです。IBN5100 が運ばれるのも。教えてください。一体どこにいるんですか。裏切ったようだな。M4。受けてくれたコードネーム。FB と私しか知らない秘密。フェルディナント・ブラウンって知ってるか。
Ferdinand Braun.
を発明したノーベル物理学者。そんなの。の次は現実逃避か。いる場所を変えよう。FB。ああ。でも全部俺が書いた。女言葉かってお前を騙すためさ。他の奴らにも人物像でメールを送ってやる。
Whoever they need the most.
Trick. Oh.
連絡を絶ったのは5100を手に入れた時点でそいつは用済み。そういう奴らは扱いやすい。用が済めばしませるの犬だったなんて。犬？橋田鈴さんはあなたの世話をしたんじゃない。なんで鈴さんのことを知ってる。鈴さんには関係ねえ。関係ねえことだ。だがお前たちに何がわかる。マンホールの中で寝たことあるか。コンクリが冷たくてな。骨に染み上がる。もう4日も何も食べねえで横になってると来やがるんだよ。死体と間違えてかじりに糸が垂れてたんだ。そしたら登るしかねえだろ。とへ行き着いた先でこの手を汚すことになっ。そうやって糸を登ってついたら操り人形だ。
Holy shit.
バレることなんかできねえ。バレた人形は任務を完了しても消されるが、犬って言ったな。犬なんてもんじゃねえ。家畜さ俺たちは逃げようと思ったこともあった。こんな俺にも大事なものがそいつを巻き込みたくねえって逃げようとすれば家族も俺も失敗した。苗は何も知らねえ。さえ死ねば。待て。
田ならいないわよ。コミマに行くって言ってたじゃない。
頼む。早く聞いてくれ。おお。
の死を避けるには、今私たちがいる D メールを送る前の世界線。
First email.
得た世界線に戻るしかない。
セルのデータベースにある。
So it's like we're literally going all the way back to the beginning.
お前が作ったタイムリープマシンの出来はか。
って当然でしょ。
知らないとダメだけど10分もしないうちに始め。スーパーハカ
とかっていう。
メールをすべて取り消し。
Original.
世界線を元に戻す。自分が支配するディストピア。
It was when Mox say Kurisu is dead.
If she's dead, they don't have the person behind the technology. Shit.
死ぬ。
She's the beginning and the end, literally.
Okay, that was Steins Gate, season 1, episode 20. That was one of my favorite episodes of the series.
I
That
like
was so
your
well done.
calm tone right now. I like it.
That hit me too. I don't know. That was a really, really well paced episode, and a lot happened, and it was emotional. You know, what's so great about this show isn't the reveals or like that you have. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but when something like time travel is incorporated into a series or a movie, there's so much mystery behind it, and there's so many answers and things and numbers in this show that leave me writing down all this random shit from episode 1 to 5 to wherever we are now, 20, and it's not all that mystery or the connections or being able to try to figure out what's going to happen next. Like this show, it doesn't lean on the reveals at all. It leans on how powerful and well written the actual core story is. That when those reveals come and they're in front of you, it's not about, oh, you didn't see it coming. It's about, no, this is what makes sense for this story. And because we wrote it so well and because we established the way that the show works and this world works from episode 1, when those reveals come, they're just really fulfilling. I feel like, I don't know, you know, when we're in literature class and we're learning about the tempo of a story and you're going from the intro into the rising action conclusion, you're falling back down that hill. And I think that there's some misconception that once you're going from the rising action to the peak of that, you're almost reaching the peak moment of the series, wherein in this show, it feels like it's so far, it's a completion. It's hard. It's a performance.
It's a circle.
It's something.
It's a loop to me. Like the peak was the beginning and will be the end. That's how it feels to me, at least. Since, like, to have the confidence to write a story where you write that story and you build all these things into it, and then you slowly undo all of those things and take back to the foundation.
Yeah.
That the confidence to do that.
So this is gonna sound like idiotic and insane, but it's the only thing that's coming to mind right now, and I'm at a loss for words. So bear with me for a second. I watched this. This is so cringy. I watched America's Got Talent performance 5 years ago. I don't know. It wasn't an audition. It was this guy named Brian Justin Crumb, and he sang the song "Creep."
Oh, that's a good song.
It is, but the reason I'm bringing it up isn't because it's a good song, but the way that performance, I've listened to it one time, and I'm quoting it in a fucking reaction video of Steins Gate right now, and I'm doing that for a reason, because the way that it was performed stuck with me, and it wasn't like the way that he was able to present himself during the song was that he started out solid and good, but over the course of that song, he hit heights of disbelief. But it's not hitting those heights of disbelief that make that performance great. It's the fact that once he hit those heights of disbelief, he was able to descend without losing anything, connecting it back to the first half of that performance, and finishing out in a way that you're left in awe of how much of a work of art that contained little 3-minute performance was. And we're 20 episodes into this show, and I am in awe of how perfect they're handling everything, and the tone, and everything makes sense, and everything. I don't know. This is one of my favorite shows that I've ever seen.
To write a story like this in a similar way to a musical comparison, to have a steady and stable beginning to a song, a foundation being built vocally, and then in the same comparison to a steady, sturdy foundation being built to build a story upon. I think that this is a really great example of that being done. That all of these crazy topics and things happening, and then also the idea of destroying the building after it's built, just back down to the concrete foundation. It wouldn't be possible to use all of these ideas and concepts, time travel, world lines, undoing of these things, have the dramatic emotional twists of undoing those things and what it means for those characters. You wouldn't have all of that and still have the audience feeling in awe after an episode ends where they don't even know what to say, unless you had built a foundation to stand on that felt like the viewer could stand on it as well.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly, like, I thought in concept that this show would be something that I, would have tons of things to say after the fact, after an episode airs. And I feel like, especially lately with the D-Mail episodes where we're undoing, I have had so little to say for all of the right reasons. And I'm like, yeah, I should probably put my thoughts into words, but my thoughts are all just like, wow, what am I witnessing here? And I'm like, that's not the most interesting thoughts to be saying over and over again or talking about, but that's the truth of it, is after these episodes lately, that's really what I'm left with. I'm not left with all of these things that I feel the desire to pick apart or to analyze or look into. I am left with a real heavy desire to just sit back in my chair.
Yeah. What I'm left with is the desire to watch every episode that is left and then rewatch it again. And
then watch it backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, what a fucking... How many episodes are left in this series?
Who knows? Sometimes they're 24, 25. We're on episode 20. We only have one more thing to undo, so I'm not sure. It might be 23 episodes.
I don't know.
It's not loading, so...
But I'm also trying to just see the series number and not look at the titles or anything like that. Okay, it says 24. Or 20. That feels right. I'm hesitant to speak too early, but the only type of one of my favorite shows, I think my favorite show that we've watched on the channel are up there, subjectively, not being what's the most well written in this regard or most, the achievements and accomplishments it's able, to have, but it's no secret, obviously. Mob Psycho is my one true love, right? But I one of the reasons I love it so much is because it's one of the only shows that we've watched that's a whole completed work and has hit me on a lot of personal levels. And I'd make the gamble to say that this show is up there in that regard, and it's not even over yet. Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking of the journey that we've been on and trying to imagine what it's going to be like to relive that on a rewatch is going to be something magical. It's something is truly special that on a rewatch, not only you're picking things up that you missed, but you're appreciating everything that was given to you for different reasons than you did the first time. And I don't think... I think that they could have handled the idea that Mr. Braun was FB in a plethora of different ways, and they could have carried his character in so many different ways. They could have made his true personality be much more evil. They could have made him be much more theatrical, or much more of a mastermind in a different way that he was. But the sad reality of humanity that he was living in, I think, made this so much more powerful than I ever could have written it to be. One of the lines, I'm gonna click through and find it because it deserves to be found at some point in the discussion, but just for the sake of talking right now, of climbing up on the thread that appeared to him and then turning into a puppet that was on that string. It hits so deep and so hard, because when you're in that sewer and you don't have anything to eat and rats are surrounding you, it reminds me of Moeka up on the ledge when she has nothing, and the only thing that is there between her and death is that one string. And the fact that you're even able to grab onto that string is something that is courageous. And I know that string is what
like
led...
a will for something better. A hope for something better. And that's the trick. There's a trick, and then there's the trap. CERN tricks you into grabbing the vulnerable, the people that are easiest to trick, like you, Moeka, to grab that string, that thread, and then they trap you by pulling you up, giving you a security, a place to belong. In Mr. Braun's case, he now has a family. He has a person that could be hurt, that he cares about very deeply now, and that would be at risk if he didn't continue. They then trap you by giving you this second chance. And this now you have a desire to live. Now you have a reason to live. And so then it's going to be that much scarier or harder, the idea of ever risking what has now been created for you. That now you want to live. And then that's where they trap you.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, you're going to get out of the house because you don't want Nay to be there, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm like, fuck. Why are you at a construction site?
Exactly. Why this location?
Site? We hear the noises in the background, and it's like, fuck. Don't do it, but do it. Like that. I think that's what I'm trying to convey. Like that, there's, like, you have feelings of like, oh God, don't. Like I had feelings when the construction site was hitting me and the sounds were hitting me, like, oh my God, Moeka's probably gonna die here. Don't do it. But then in my heart, I'm like, it needs to happen because that's why this show is so good, because it makes sense that that's the next event that's going to happen. Just like it makes sense and feels perfect that our conflict right now is the one of Ocarine realizing that Makise Kurisu is going to die.
That all of this, all of these people, all of these deaths of these people, all of this traumatic experience of undoing heavy desires, Mayuri's death, all of Suzuha, all of this, can be undone just by one person dying. It kind of reminds me of like I'm in a psychology class right now, like an entry-level 101 psychology class, and they're like, here's a train track, and then here's a group of people, and then here's one person, which way are you going to make the train go?
Yeah. That's
how it made, and I'm like, wow, thank you for, like, in the best way possible, giving me an example of that.
You know what they've done, too? Like, the character of Mr. Braun, and like they gave us a line that Mr. Braun said that he texted others too, and he was always texting them from the person that they needed to hear from, right? The person they needed the most. And that's a lot to to give me of a character to make me have resentment or distaste for them in their manipulation of people, right? And their use of people. But in the same fucking line, his defensiveness of Suzuha makes me feel like everything good from Suzuha and all of his life that has been good, that isn't fogged up, has been passed into Nei. And like all of the hopes and dreams of these people who haven't been trapped and hung up like a puppet are going to be living their lives throughout, these other people that they're touching.
I wonder how this interaction would have gone if it had happened in either the world line before this, because in this world line, Suzuha died of natural causes.
Yeah.
But I wonder how this interaction would have gone if it was the world line where she hadn't died of natural causes. Would Mr. Braun respond? He responds defensively of Suzuha here, but I am curious what the actions he chooses to do here, if they would be different at all, if she had maybe done something similar.
Yeah. I liked a lot that Mr. Braun had that reaction to Suzuha's name.
Mm-hmm. Like, what do you even know? Like,
yeah. And I liked that it wasn't expanded upon. I liked that Okabe wasn't trying to be like, oh, this is who she was, this is what she did.
Because that wasn't the point in that moment to, like, prove to him. Like, it's not like a contest of, like, I know Suzuha better. Like, that's not the time. And I was expecting it just because I thought that maybe if we say that we knew her really well and explain who she was, then Mr. Braun won't be a villain. But that's not how it was meant to happen. Everything in this show, I couldn't have written it better at all. I mean, obviously, I couldn't have written it better. Everything that happens in this show is what it was meant to happen. That's how it feels. Like, it feels like you couldn't even do a what if series. And if you like, you couldn't even theorize or play around with, like, other things happening. Because it feels like everything that happened literally was written in the stars from the moment you open episode 1.
I get the intention of what you're trying to say there, because on one hand, I'm like, holy shit, it'd be so much fun to do what ifs about the show.
It truly would.
But at one point, I compared the feeling the show gives me to Death Note, and I stand behind that to this day for a few reasons. But one of the things that it makes me relate to that type of show the most is that perfection of writing, where it feels like this person wrote this, read through the whole thing, and we're like, no, I'm going to change this so it fits better. Read through the whole thing, no, I'm going to change this back, it fits better. Like, it's just meticulous and so perfect that, I don't know, it's like they laid it. It's untouchable.
It's like the house scenario that, the foundation, but like brick by brick, like piece by piece. And if something doesn't line up perfectly correctly, they like undid it and put it back.
Yeah.
Like, meticulous is a really great word of how they feel in terms of similarity of writing.
I don't know. I don't feel like, I'm really excited to see what they do with the ending. It's really good.
I am also really curious and excited to see what the ending is. Like, do we really end this series with Kurisu dying and then, okay, show's over? Like, is that really, do we really go back to the beginning and just completely stop the series as soon as we get to the point that we started?
I think the best part about the ending to this episode and that realization of like, oh yeah, that's the world line where I was stabbed, right? Was the inclusion of how distant Mayuri and Okabe have been recently. I think
now we're going back to when they were the closest.
That's like, it's the give and take of that, right? Like, how close they were, and Kurisu being dead, and then the closer they get,
Oh, you're so right. It's like Mayuri at the beginning was who he was closest to. Mayuri dies, and then Kurisu's now who he's closest to, and then Kurisu dies is what we get to.
Yeah.
Like, That's so, it's almost like you're picking one or the other.
Well, it
Like
is
this,
to
it
a
really
certain
is.
degree, but it's just really, I don't know, man. I feel for my boy Ocarine. Look, man, I know Dr. Peppers can heal a lot of wounds, but you've been through a lot and you deserve to rest. And I
He
don't know
needs
if
a
you're
nap.
going to get to. I'm thinking of so much right now. Like one of the thoughts that just came to mind was the scene in the hourglass we had of Mayori even talking about time, and she thinks that she's the original version, and how that could connect to this.
Mhm.
And it's just so much. I don't know. What do you do? What do you do if you're him right now? You try to find another way, right?
Probably. I
But
mean,
that's not how this works, right?
I mean, honestly, I was gonna say, I said probably, but then I started thinking about it more, and I'm like, Okabe has definitely learned from that trial and error of trying to save Mary how many times that I don't know. Once he's then faced with the actual, I have to choose this person's life over this person's life, I do wonder if he would just be like, okay, some things are how they're supposed to happen, and the dystopian future wouldn't exist if this happens. And that's thinking about everyone. That's thinking about future. That's thinking about Suzuhu traveled back in time. That's thinking about the resistance that he apparently leads in the future.
How does Kurisu end up working for CERN? Is she taken in and then somehow Ocarine and Daru are able to separate and like from CERN after being taken, and then they just go their separate ways deeper? Like how does Kurisu become the Kurisu that Suzuha was telling us about?
CERN gets access to her in the original where she gets stabbed, but it's because of her. I think it's because of Okabe that Kurisu really does try to invent a time machine. We know from very beginning of this series that she is very touchy on the subject of time travel, her relationship with her dad. I don't think it's something that she would have touched unless she was like put into the space that she was with the friends that she was in the lab that she was put in with Okabe as her teammate and her companion. I it's not something she would have ended up actually trying to create in this world, especially when she's the character who very strongly was like, there's nothing I want to go back in time and change because everything that has happened to me has made me who I am. And even though she's a main character, she is the one that never did a D-mail for herself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really, that's what I'm thinking right now. That's what I'm thinking about. Lots of things.
I kept climbing the thread, and next thing I knew, I was a puppet on a string. Couldn't escape. Puppets who escape the thread. God.
He's the enforcer. Honestly, if you like really think about it, I don't think his life being taken would have been sufficient for CERN to not enact some type of revenge on his family. Nay. I think that because he was the one that was in charge of all of these M4 and the others, that in order to ensure the safety of his family, he had to clean up everything.
Do you think so? I'm rereading what Mr. Braun said. Yeah. A student with his hold on. A student with his own damned room, friends like you guys, and who does whatever he wants. He really is lucky. But so do you think in the world line that Kurisu's dead in, do you think Mr. Braun is still working for CERN? Because technically, like, I would assume he wouldn't be there in the first place if it wasn't for CERN. But maybe he doesn't get his hands dirty in the same way. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, I feel like he's only where he is because of the inevitability of Okabe creating the time machine above him. I don't know. Like, I want to watch episode 1 again.
I mean, all I can say in response to that is that we get at the end here that the boss texts Moeka that we're not looking for the IBN anymore. And it is possible that without the IBN being known of and without Okabe trying to do this, that, you know, even if Mr. Braun is working under CERN, he's not having to dirty his hands so much. And maybe without the plausibility of the person they need to invent the time machine, then CERN would cease to exist. Therefore, Mr. Braun would probably be safe.
Yeah.
And so would everyone else. But.
All right. That's all I have, you.
Yeah.
I love this show.
It's a good show.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time.